You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, as the race to the 2027 general election builds up, leaders in Nigeria's northern region have intensified voter mobilization drive aimed at countering the South's commanding lead in online pre-registration for the 2027 election.
According to INEC, over 3.5 million Nigerians have pre-registered online, with Osun, Lagos and Ogun leading the pack. Meanwhile, northern leaders and northern states like Kano and Zamfara are trailing behind despite their population strength. Joining us to shed more light on why there's such intensity in the sensitization of voters, particularly in the northern region, in what will be a battle of votes in 2027, is National Publicity Secretary of the Arewa Consultative Forum, Professor Tukur Muhammad-Baba. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
A very good morning to you. Happy to be with you today.
All right. Let's begin with what factors might lead to the North playing catch-up. We're seeing Osun alone having over 500,000 pre-registered voters. Kano has a much larger population, but it barely crossed 66,000. So what factors would you say are causing us to see this huge disparity in numbers?
Well, in the first place, I think it's very important to emphasize that voter registration is one of the requirements of the political process. A citizen is entitled to vote but cannot do that until they register. That's one. Number two, in the last few years, as shown by patterns in presidential and other elections, there has been declining participation in terms of voter turnout. And one of the factors is probably that citizens take voter registration lightly. It's not important until they don't realize it until it's too late. So there is nothing new. Number three, in fact, it is INEC itself and also the political parties are responsible for voter campaign so that they get voters to vote. No matter what your support for any party is, you cannot vote if you are not a registered voter. But four, I think there is an exaggeration that the North is trying to counter anybody. No, it's not true. The voter registration is for every citizen. And the campaigns embarked upon by HCF is aimed at all citizens who are eligible for, to vote, so that they register to actualize their right to vote. So these are some of the factors. One, lack of voter apathy. Two, lack of heightened activities by those responsible for enlightening citizens. The Independent National Commission, is Independent Electoral Commission is one. And then, of course, the political parties themselves have a big responsibility with their deciding. So the campaign is actually a civic campaign aimed at empowering citizens to use what they have when the time comes.
But there seems to be, many have said, trust issues. There's a trust gap. The North has also witnessed a high level of insecurity, unemployment, out-of-school children. There's also a case where students are starting to feel like they've been neglected because the education system in the North is not looking very interesting to some of them. So why should they believe in this voter mobilization campaign? Why should they even give of themselves and their time to also come out to say they want to register, talk less of voting?
In fact, all the reasons you have given are the very same reasons that make it necessary for citizens to vote. Because if you don't like policies of government or you don't like the performance of any party, the only way you can make a change outside of violent changes, which is not at all recommended, is to register to vote. Dissatisfaction with any government policies or any political party, and citizens have a right. But then, of course, how can they register their protest? They register their protest by voting. How do you vote? By registering. So that the reasons you have given are actually the main reasons why citizens should take active part, to take interest and actually perform by registering to vote. That is the only way governments or policies or parties will be informed about their performance. You see, people are dissatisfied with the state of health, with the state of education, with the state of the economy, and the political economy in general. The thing to do is to vote. And then, of course, all the campaigns by political parties and politicians are usually designed to get citizens to vote, because that is the legal way to express satisfaction or lack of it. So if in fact government have not been voting, the best thing for citizens to do is to register to vote, to register. And when the time comes, they come out massively with their votes with their registration card to vote. So the reasons you have given me are actually very good reasons for citizens to take active part in the process. And like I said, it is legal. It is the legal requirement for citizens. It's not enough to be eligible. One of the requirements of eligibility is voting. And of course, it is the civic rights of individuals. In some countries, remember that voting is actually compulsory. There have been an attempt in Nigeria to make it compulsory, but I think so far the process has stalled in the National Assembly, or in fact has been rejected. I cannot recall immediately. But to go back to my position, all the dissatisfaction with what is going on is actually a very, very good reason for citizens to register to vote. And of course, when parties see the results of the registration process, they intensify their campaigns. They know it shows one of their weaknesses and so on. So it's very important. In fact, you would say that registration is more important than voting itself. Because when you don't register, the question of voting does not even arise at all.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Professor Tukur Muhammad-Baba. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we still have quite a lot to unpack with regards to this conversation on voter registration. Do stay with us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still speaking with Professor Tukur Muhammad-Baba, who is the National Publicity Secretary of the Arewa Consultative Forum. Professor, before we went on the break, you had talked about voting and said in some countries they have compulsory voting. You said they tried to do it in Nigeria. It didn't quite pan out. Is it something you would endorse in Nigeria?
Well, anything to get citizens to be enlightened, I think it's very important. Now, the law is not as important as the implementation. If we have the machinery for implementing that, yes, I will endorse it. But under our circumstances as a third world country, Nigeria, given the population, the depth of security personnel, the challenges before the electorate, I think for now we are not, and this is my personal opinion, we are not mature enough for compulsory voting. What I will encourage is what is going on. All manners of stakeholders should embark on an enlightening campaign to get voters, to inform voters about the importance of registration. Like I said earlier, this is right now, this is the responsibility of INEC and the political parties, and both institutions are not doing enough. So it behoves on one, non-governmental organizations, civic organizations, interest groups, and so on, to intensify the enlightenment campaign. You see, one of our problems is, of course, inadequate education. And unless you can get citizens to be well informed, even if they are not educated, and there are various multimedia channels that voters can be sensitized about the importance of their right. Otherwise, apathy. Otherwise, people will think I will not make a difference. The campaign should be every single registration is important. And of course, a number of measures have been taken in the past. In the process of 2011 election, 2015 and 2023, I think a lot of organizations have intensified the drive to get voters to register. In fact, some government institutions demand evidence of registration before citizens can access government services, like hospitals, like enrollment in school, and so on. Some religious organizations in the past, and I recall immediately the 2011, 2015, and 2019 and 2023, even religious organizations in churches, in mosques, in marketplaces, and so on. Like I said, this is healthy. For now, I think this is what we need. And then going forward, we need to intensify that. If we get to a point where citizens will be required to do that, there is no harm. But right now, I will not advocate for compulsory voter registration or info voting because we don't have the infrastructure in place to enforce that.
Now, Prof, I have two questions for you. Are you confident that the North will close this registration gap in the time that is left for registration? And also, what's your assessment of INEC as we inch towards the 2027 elections? Are you confident they will do a better job than 2023, where they overpromised and underdelivered?
First of all, it's not a question of my confidence. It is a question of my prayer, my hope that INEC will perform better. And this is how it should be. The electoral process in a young democracy should be a build-up process, so that at every level, after every cycle of elections, we look at the flaws, we look at the successes, and we build on those, reinforce success, and deal with the flaws. But to go back to an earlier comment you made, I'm not sure we gain a lot by emphasizing that it is a war between the North and the South. It is not. Like I said at the beginning of my appearance here, it is a legal requirement of the electoral process. That's one. That is also registering and voting is also one of the ways for citizens to register their pleasure or displeasure with any party in government. From Calabar to Ilela in Tukur.
Yeah, Professor, are you there?
From Brass on the Niger Delta to Megatari, I would encourage every citizen that is qualified to vote. In fact, I would like to see a broad movement, a massive drive and effort by citizens to register. This will in fact ginger the political parties that danger for them looms in the horizon if they don't perform very well, and it will be up to them when they see the large number of potential voters who could make a difference. I think it will ginger political parties to perform better. So it's not a question of North-South. It's a question of getting everybody to emphasize, to exercise their fundamental human rights as guaranteed in the Constitution, so that it's one way that a citizen can have direct influence on government and government policy. And of course, that is the only way to ensure fair and equitable distribution. So I would urge the press to desist from thinking it's a war between the North and the South. It is not. For example, if I go out today to encourage parents to register their children in basic education, I'm not trying to catch up with the South that has gone far. I am trying to get citizens to actualize their potential. So to me, it's not a question of North-South. And it has been done, like I said earlier, by religious bodies, non-governmental organizations, and so on. In general, I think in the political process, government agencies are not doing enough to get citizens to register to vote. And this behoves on us, civic society organizations, to actually go out and encourage people to vote. It's not a zero-sum game, so that where the South gains in voter registration, the North loses, or vice versa. It is a fundamental human right, and we should not try to read meanings, politics, and so on, to read intentions. It is part of the political process, and nobody needs to get frightened, and so on. It is something to be encouraged.
Okay. I mean, just to wrap things up, my final question would be, we have seen a few governors come out and also politicians telling the current administration, Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that they are guaranteeing him a certain number of votes from the 2 million. As I've said, we're going to guarantee you over millions upon millions of votes. And these are just declarations. What do you make of these declarations, especially made by politicians? Do you think it's an act of politicking, or do you think it is actually certain that they will be able to get these numbers for the president?
Of course, to say that the president or anybody else for that matter will get X number of votes is purely speculative. But it can be excused on the ground that it is part of the political process. It is a propaganda to either tell themselves to the president or to get voters to actually come out. But, you know, nobody can guarantee that. At the end of the day, it is the voter himself, the registered voter, who will determine who to vote for. And of course, it is up to the electoral body, the electoral management body, to ensure that votes are counted. For any politician, I can sit down here and promise the president that I would mobilize 40 million people. But of course, unless you are going to use some other foul means to register those, you cannot do that. One, it depends on the number of people who vote. Two, it depends on the turnout. And three, it's up to the individual and so on. What we are hearing are all propaganda, campaign, mind games, and so on. No citizen and no voter should relax because of that. You see in some jurisdictions, you will see such predictions, scientific surveys that says who will get what, but they have not always worked. So at the end of the day, it is the citizen himself or herself to register and then to actually vote. And it's up to the electoral body, the electoral management body, to ensure that the votes are counted. And this is our expectation, that the electoral management body, and in our case, INEC, will be up to speed in ensuring the credibility and integrity of the voting population. If we go by the pattern that has been going on in this country in the last 3 or 4 presidential elections, you will see that there is a dip in participation. And this is largely due to one, apathy, 2, disappointment. But you don't sit down. Life is nothing if there is no hope. Citizens should continue to vote, should come out, they should ignore the politicians. You hear it, but it is propaganda, and propaganda is part of the campaign. Whether or not the president will get 2 million from Taraba State, or 5 million from Sokoto State, or 3 million from Bayelsa State is immaterial. These are declarations. They are not even. They are not even based on service. Unless, of course, some people or some groups are telling us that come one way or another, they are going to deliver those votes, which means there will be some shenanigans in it. But it's nothing to worry about. Let's cross the bridge when we get there.
All right, and this is such a great way to wrap up the conversation, and we want to use this avenue to advocate for more people to be involved in the process, because we all have a collective responsibility. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for your time.
It's been my pleasure, and I hope and urge